All right, guys. So your essential question, the thing that you're thinking about this week is how do animal characters change familiar stories? Now, I just want to go ahead and tell you, I know you have read The Ant and the Grasshopper earlier in the year, sent the actual workbook pages home this time. You're not doing the same activities that you have done earlier. You've got some different activities to go along with the story this time. It's not going to hurt you to reread the story. Anytime you can reread a passage, it always helps with understanding and comprehension anyway. So your central question, how do animal characters change familiar stories? Now, there are some stories that you were familiar with that you hear as you're growing up, okay, that we've all probably heard. And so it wants to think about this week how when you put an animal in that story, how is it going to change that story? If you look at this picture here, usually a frog is just a frog. But if we take and put it into a story and make him the main character, like this one's got a crown on his head, he might be a prince or a king or something, then how's that going to change the story? Obviously, some other things are going to change. Some other characters might change. Some things about the plot, the events would have to change because you're using animals instead of people. Okay, and so that's what we're thinking about this week. And so, to begin, let's listen to just a little quick story here of A Grasshopper's Sad Tale.
A Grasshopper's Sad Tale. Grasshopper sits in a chair, shivering and warming his hands at a fire, then looks at the audience. Grasshopper, drawing himself up. I do not tell you this tale for pity. I see you look at me, my thin legs, my hungry eyes, and I know you judge me to be foolish and lazy. But listen, and you will know that nothing could be further from the truth. My sad story begins in the spring. Ah, warm morning. I napped on a blade of grass, letting a gentle breeze sway me. A passing ant called out, saying it was spring, and that I should cut the blade of grass I slept on and put it away for a winter's meal. Good advice. Grasshopper pauses, then shrugs. But the day was young, and the grass was comfortable. I decided I would follow her advice later. Ah, sunny noontime. Grasshopper smiles fondly at the memory. I sat upon a leaf that drifted across the smooth surface of a country pond, singing softly to the summer sky above. From the shore an ant called out, telling me to cease my foolishness, to harvest the leaf I floated on and stack it on my winter shelf instead. She is right, I said to myself. I will start planning for winter, just as soon as I have finished my song. Ah, rainy eve. I curled under an autumn leaf, dozing as gentle rain tapped out a dreamy lullaby. An ant, out gathering rainwater, woke me impatiently, saying that now was the time to gather water to drink during winter's frozen days. More good advice. It was time to get to work. But it is easier to work when you are well rested, so I prepared myself with one last nap. At last I was ready. But before I could begin, winter marched through. Gone were the tender blades of grass, the juicy green leaves. The warm pond had frozen. And so I ask you, kind ant, can you spare a leaf, a drop of water?
All right. And so this is a familiar story. I'm sure that most of you have probably heard. The ant and the grasshopper, where, the ants were busily working. They were gathering food and water and things that they knew they would need in the coming seasons where the food and the water wasn't readily available. An ant was either too lazy, wanting to nap, wanting to sing, had too many excuses, I'll do it later, that kind of thing. And so we're going to be working with this story this week and thinking about some different things that go along with this story. And one thing that you're going to be thinking about is what we call theme. Theme is what is theme or moral, depending on what, you might hear it called two different things. Theme is what we're going to call it this week. Theme is what lesson you can learn. You can learn multiple lessons from this story, and I'm not going to go into detail on what lessons we can learn just yet because that's part of your work this week. But when you're thinking about your stories and things this week, you're going to be thinking about the theme of that story. What lesson do you think either the main characters could learn or that we could learn from the main characters. And remember, we're going to have animal characters this week too. We're also going to be thinking about how that kind of changes the story a little bit. Okay? And so today what you're going to be doing, and I'm going to go ahead and flip back to my page. Or actually, I've got one more video for you to watch. Hang on, I'm sorry. I forgot this one almost. Let's watch this video, and then we'll do your workbook page.
How do animal characters change familiar stories? It's not every day you see a bear cooking or a chicken making juice. Have you ever seen a dog make a cake? When you replace people in a story with animal characters, it changes it. The animal's traits can make the story funnier and more interesting. A group of animals made food to share at a picnic.
All right. So this week, that's what we're going to be thinking about is how animal characters can change familiar stories. Now, in your workbook pages, you're going to be doing pages 130 and 131. Let me zoom out just a little bit more. All right, so get your pencil in your workbook pages, and we'll do pages 130 and 131. Or we're going to talk about it, and you're going to fill it in. I'll give you some, think time and stuff. But if you look at, and let me zoom in on page 131 a little bit more so we can see it. It says, well, the frog in the photograph is a handsome prince under a magic spell. That's how the familiar story goes, and of course it ends happily. What are some of your favorite stories with animal characters? What are the characters' traits? Write some words that describe the traits of animals in stories. Talk about these traits with your partner or someone at home. Remember to make eye contact as you speak, enunciate and speak slowly and clearly. All right. So think about some of your most favorite animal characters. And it says, what are some of the characters' traits? Traits are personalities, how they act, their behavior. Maybe it's what they look like. So you pick an animal character, and I want you to fill in the bubble, for your animal character that you chose. Okay. And you might choose something, hopefully that we're familiar with. What's one of your most favorite animal characters? Okay. All right. And so what you're going to do, you're going to fill in just some more 4 words to describe some of their traits. It could be, like I said, their behavior, their personality, maybe the way they sound if they talk, maybe the way they walk, the way they dress. Okay. But pick an animal character and come up with 4 words to describe that character.